Hello, my name is Christine Ruddle. I am an advocate at Genesis Women's Shelter and Support. I want to welcome you to our Genesis webinar. Thank you for joining us. This presentation is for educational purposes only. Please consider your own situation and safety concerns before putting into practice any of the ideas talked about today. We want to be sure to consider safety and confidentiality, so be sure to watch this in a safe place where only safe people can hear it. Remember to clear your browser history after watching the video, just in case someone monitors your phone or computer. Using headphones can help ensure no one else can hear what you are watching or listening to. If you leave any comments on the YouTube video recording, your name and comment will be seen by everyone else who watches the video. If you are in crisis and need help with emergency safety planning, or you're needing emergency shelter due to domestic violence, please call our hotline number. It's 24 hours, 214-946-4357. If you would like to sign up for counseling at Genesis or want to talk to a counselor about your situation, please call 214-389-7700. If you're not able to call our hotline, you could also call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and then we also want you to have the 24-hour National Suicide Hotline number as well. So, questions about the video today. We attempt to stay up to date with resource and referral information in this rapidly changing world. So there is a possibility that a resource represented is no longer available. If you experience trouble attempting to contact a resource, please contact me. My information will be at the end of these slides. If you have questions about anything that is said in this video, please contact your advocate. I will be happy to do that. I'm leading the webinar, but you could also contact any of the Genesis advocates. We do not monitor or respond to any comments or questions left on the YouTube video recordings. Please contact us directly if you need help. So let's begin the Housing for Survivors of Domestic Violence webinar. I want to start with the fact that knowledge is power. Today's reality is social distancing, which impacts every aspect of life. And life is made up of people who are each and every one of us. What happens in our county, in our city, impacts our economy, which impacts the housing market. Why is housing important? I bet you can give me a lot of reasons why housing is important to you. But I want you to also understand why it's important to all of us. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and if you notice at the bottom of the triangle, it says physiological needs. These are the foundation where it needs to start, where you need to have those needs met in order to go to the next step up, which is safety and security. So if you'll read them, it's breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, and sleep. Shelter represents housing. So housing is very important to achieve safety and security, that sense of belonging and love, to feel good about yourself, and then really to become purposeful and intentional about what you want to accomplish. There are challenges with housing in Dallas, unique to Dallas, some of them. Due to a booming economy, the housing market is tight. People have moved here from out of state even because of our economy. This has caused rent and mortgages to increase in price. It's difficult to find safe, affordable housing. There's a limited number of income-based apartments. A challenge might be finding something that you can afford because of a broken lease or poor or no credit. And then if you're looking at housing programs, most of them are at capacity all the time. And now there's COVID-19. What are options for housing? This is where I encourage you to be very creative and think outside the box. So consider a family or friend and know that it's temporary to get you to a permanent more permanent place in your life. So maybe a friend or a family member, maybe renting a room or sharing a room, a boarding home, a group home, second chance apartments, income-based apartments, transitional housing programs, rapid rehousing program, housing priority list, and housing authorities. If you are going to rent through a program that is funded through the federal government or the state, they have income eligibility limits by household size. And this is a chart of what they're looking at. So if you fall in that 100% category, you will definitely qualify for the housing programs, maybe even up to the 150% one. So options to rent or lease might be a room, an apartment, a townhouse, a condo, a duplex, a house, and something through rapid rehousing, which is not really rapid. And we will talk about rapid rehousing a little later. So what do you need to have ready to rent an apartment or house? It will save a lot of time and worry if you get all of this together before you go to lease an apartment. So you want to have proof of employment, which might be pay stubs or a letter of offer of employment. Sometimes that might be on your cell phone today. It could also be income of another sort if you have a trust fund or if you have child support or TANF, something that has income coming in. You might need your most recent tax return, a credit check. So if you have a copy of your credit report, have that ready. They might run one on their own. You need a social security number, a photo ID, which is government issued, a list of past addresses, banking information, and you want to provide copies, not originals of bank statements that have personal information on them. So you want to black out account numbers. And I've learned that to black something out, you need to black it out on both sides of the paper, or you can read it from the other side. You also want to have proof of residency. Reference letters from past landlords or employers don't hurt. And this is a website that you might want to check out that gives a lot of great information on what you need to rent an apartment and how to be successful. So you might be applying for HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, which is the federal government money that funds housing. And if that's the case, you are going to need a few more things than what was listed previously. You will still need that current government ID, which could be a state ID, a driver's license, a passport. You need social security cards for all members of the household. A source of income, again, employment verification, 3 paycheck stubs, your bank statements, and again, that source of income might be a disability check. It might be child support. In Dallas County, you're going to need proof of residency, which could be an award letter for SNAP or TANF or Medicaid. It might be a utility bill that shows the address and it has a date and time stamp on it showing that you lived at that address in Dallas. A credit report, and then birth certificates for all members of the household. And if you have children, you need to have their immunization records up to date and available. So applying for income-based housing. Income-based housing is also called affordable housing. It does involve funding from the government, usually handled through Dallas Housing Authority. So you're going to need to find an apartment or townhome that is income-based housing. You can get this list from your advocate, or you can find apartments on your own. You can go on Dallas Housing Authority's website, on the National HUD website as well, to find apartments that are income-based. You want to follow the guidelines for applying for a home with a housing voucher, because it does involve a voucher for income-based housing. And that means that there might be some steps that you take for income-based housing that you don't have to take if you're renting it on your own. If you're in need of help with the deposit fee, the application fee, discuss that with your advocate, because there are financial assistance programs in Dallas that can help with that. So transitional housing, that is a program where an agency or a company has housing, and they all operate a little differently. They have their own rules, and some transitional housing programs are domestic violence, which means it'll be at an undisclosed location, and that might be something that you will need. Other transitional housing programs may not be at undisclosed locations, so you'll want to know that information. So again, you can get a list of transitional housing programs from your advocate. I also Googled this and got a list, came up with some things on there on the list as well. So review the list and follow directions for doing the intake. You might need to ask your advocate for an application for the program. You might need to call and do a phone intake, or you might have to do the application online. A lot of programs, including Dallas Housing Authority, are going to online applications. What is rapid rehousing? Good question. Rapid rehousing is a government-funded housing program, and the purpose of it is to help individuals or families who are living in shelters or in places not meant for human habitation, meaning they're homeless. It could also include someone who is at risk of becoming homeless. And the purpose is to move them as quickly as possible into permanent housing and achieve stability in that housing. Why is it not rapid? So the rapid part is once you're in a housing program is to get you from that one into the permanent housing. So that is what should move a little quicker. To get into rapid rehousing program, it takes a little bit of time and work. Rapid rehousing partners with Dallas Housing Authority. So if you apply to rapid rehousing, you most likely are going to be sent to Dallas Housing Authority to obtain a voucher. That voucher is usually good for 1 year, and know that it is not a Section 8 voucher. Housing authorities no longer call it Section 8. It is now known as the Housing Choice Voucher. And it's good for as long as you need it if you get that voucher. The voucher for rapid rehousing is usually good for 1 year. Finding your home. So you've either decided to do this on your own or you have been approved and have that voucher. So you want to look for apartment, townhomes, condos, and houses in the area where you're interested in. You want to visit those places in person if you can. You want to introduce yourself, ask questions about the apartment, the complex, the neighborhood. What's the crime rate like? Where are there schools nearby? Is there public transportation if you need that? And then ask about the availability and cost of the size of apartment you're interested in. And if you're using the Housing Choice Voucher or the Rapid Rehousing Voucher, do all of those things before you tell them you have a voucher and before you ask if they accept the voucher. So let's say you do get that voucher, then what? Once you have found a place and you've been approved or you've received the voucher, you're going to have anywhere from 90 days to possibly as little as 3 weeks to find a place to live that will accept that voucher. Housing Authority gives 90 days. Rapid rehousing, it's up to the program that's running it. So either way, whichever voucher you have it in your hand. You do not want to delay. As soon as you have it, you want to find a place as quickly as possible. You might even start looking for an apartment or house as soon as you know that you have applied and been approved for a housing program, so you're kind of ahead of the game once you get that voucher in hand. Once you're good to go with an apartment, the next step will be an inspection by the City of Dallas, and that is what can hold it up. There's probably only 2 inspectors for the city of Dallas, so they're very, very busy, have full schedules. The program you're in will do their best to get that done as quickly as possible. So, how much is rent? Great question. And the answer to that great question is it depends. So, it depends on the type of housing. You found the apartment for yourself, or you are approved for rapid rehousing. You found an income-based apartment, or you have that housing choice voucher. Each will have their own fees and prices. Even application and deposit fees vary from place to place. And if you need help with these fees, ask for referrals for financial assistance from your advocate. You will even want to watch our webinar on financial empowerment. Dallas Housing Authority, or DHA, will provide a list of fees based on zip codes and size of apartment house. Some zip code areas are areas where they want to bring some diversity into that area, and so they may pay even more for an apartment or home than they would in other zip code areas. So that's why that list is really great to have. Then the amount of rent that you will pay will depend on your income. Rapid rehousing programs may cover 100% of the rent for 3 to 6 months. They may also pay the application fee and the deposit. They may pay after the 3 months or the 6 months, 50% for 3 months, and then 25% for 3 months. And then at the end of that year, you would be 100% responsible for the rent. But hopefully by that time, you would be in a position to do that and to be able to take care of it. With the housing voucher, your part will average 30 to 40% of your monthly income. And so again, that can differ from zip code area to zip code area. Challenges with using the voucher. It can be challenging, and I think even housing authorities would tell you that. So some of the challenges is because the booming economy, housing market is tight. So if someone's applying for an apartment who does not have a voucher and can pay for it on their own, a landlord might choose to go with that person rather than a person with a voucher, even though that voucher is guaranteed money to be paid to that landlord. And it can be difficult to find someone to accept the voucher. Another thing to understand is that in apartment complexes, it might be that there's only a few apartments are designated for vouchers. For example, let's say there's an apartment complex with 100 units and 20 of those units are set aside for the vouchers. And those apartments are generally filled. And so if you go to an apartment complex and ask about it, and you know there's open available apartments in that complex, and they tell you there's not, you think they're lying to you, but they're not, because where they're coming from is that those designated units are full, not the whole complex. It might also be a challenge because of broken leases in your past and or poor or no credit. So some tips to finding housing with a voucher is very similar to finding an apartment or income-based apartment, even rapid rehousing on your own. So you want a list of potential apartments that accept the voucher, and you might get this from the housing program you're working with, your advocate, or your caseworker at Dallas Housing Authority. They're all good resources. Also, Dallas Housing Authority has GoSection8.com, which is a great list for houses and apartments within the Dallas County area. Research some second chance housing options if that is something that you need. You may make phone calls, but it's still best to go in person. Drive the area where you would like to find a place to live. Talk to family and friends for referrals. They're sometimes great resources. And you might even ask a realtor to assist you. And that's not going to cost you anything, or it should not cost you anything, because it's the apartment that will pay the realtor if you get an apartment from that place. What should you say to be successful? Visit or call, and this is working with that voucher. Visit or call the apartment. You can call. You'll be more successful if you visit, but either way, you want to introduce yourself, Tell them your name, where you're from, share what you're looking for. But don't mention that voucher yet. Ask questions about the complex. Is it a safe place? Is there public transportation if you need it? Is it a locked community? All the things that you're wanting to know. Again, don't mention that voucher yet. Then you ask if they have an apartment the size that you need, which is designated by that voucher. And if they say, well, yes, we do, then you say, you know, I have a housing choice voucher, or I have a rapid housing voucher and would like to use it for this apartment. And you're more likely to get a yes with that than if you say it at the very beginning. So let's say you got that apartment or you got that home and you're leasing it or renting it. Here's 18 ways you can ruin your life renting an apartment. And you may already know some of these. So one way is choosing a bad roommate. Another is paying your rent late. And paying your rent late doesn't mean paying, if it's due on the 1st and you pay it on the 2nd, then you paid your rent late. And that could show up on your credit report. Yes, there's a grace period most of the time, maybe 5 days. And you could pay it any time in that 5 days and not get penalized, but it's still going to come up as late because it wasn't paid on the 1st when it was due. Not saving money for moving expenses. And I would say more than just that, not saving money for the deposit or for what you're going to need when you move into the apartment. Not adding how much utilities and transportation will cost, and that goes into living too far away from work, because especially if you're using public transportation, it can take up to 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get to work and then back from work. And even if you're driving in Dallas with the traffic when it's really up and running, that can take a long time as well if you work very far away. Not knowing your criminal, credit, or rental history. You really need to know that before you rent the apartment. Paying an application fee without knowing 100% you will get approved. I've had clients who have paid the application fee and the deposit and was told, you'll be approved. And then when they went back to get the key, or they thought they were going to get the key, they were told, oh, sorry, you weren't approved. And then they were told they would not get back their application fee and their deposit. Well, that's illegal. They would not get back the application fee, but they should get that deposit back. So you might need help with that if that happens. Not doing a walkthrough of the apartment on move-in day. I think you should be able to do it before move-in day, but if not, at least move-in day and have a choice to say that's not what you want if it's not up to what you want. Not reading your lease completely. I don't know how many of you have read your lease, but I know my lease is like 18 to 20 pages long in tiny print. But it's really important to read the whole thing and know what it says and what your rights are and what your responsibilities are, but also what the rights and responsibilities of the apartment or the leasing agent are as well. You could also ruin it by throwing loud parties and inviting poorly behaved guests, or doing drugs or other illegal things in the apartment. Not communicating maintenance issues right away. And that, I think, can go several different ways. So if you don't communicate the maintenance issues right away and something gets worse and worse and worse, that could be a problem for you. But it also might be a case where you do communicate maintenance issues and they don't do anything about it. And in that case, you might need to look at fair housing, which we'll talk about that later. Co-signing on someone else's lease could be a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean it will be, but it could. Getting into conflict with other residents, making changes to the apartment without the landlord's permission, not providing proper notice when you want to move out, not completely cleaning your apartment when you move out, and then getting upset because you don't get your deposit back. So just avoid making these mistakes and you should have a good renting experience. So I mentioned fair housing rights. So if you feel like when you're looking for an apartment, you are being discriminated against for any reason, and this keeps happening, then I would encourage you to contact Fair Housing. There's North Texas Fair Housing, which is a nonprofit organization, and it's not the same as the City of Dallas Fair Housing. So here's their website. You can look them up and contact them through their website. Then their City of Dallas has the Fair Housing Office, and they too could help in those kind of situations. Even in those situations where you don't feel like they're taking the maintenance seriously and not doing what they're supposed to do. And so here's their information as well. So because we're dealing with domestic violence, you might have to get out of an apartment that you just signed a lease on, or the lease is still good for 6 months or 3 months, and you have been told that you're going to have to pay that amount even though you won't be living there because of the domestic violence. Well, definitely speak with a domestic violence advocate or counselor. They can write you a letter that says and documents that you are a victim of domestic violence. And included with that will be a copy of Section 92.016 of the Texas Property Code, which says that they have to honor that letter and let you out of the lease. Now, letting you out of the lease doesn't mean you won't be responsible for that month that maybe you left in, but it should stop the lease going forward. In the past, you would need a police report and a protective order, but since they passed the Section 92.016 property code, you no longer have to have a police report or a copy of protective order. It doesn't hurt to have them, but if you don't have them, you can still talk to a domestic violence advocate. So let's say that you talk to the advocate, you get the letter, you take it to your leasing agent, and they say, not going to honor it, even though it's breaking the law. So in that case, or maybe you have more than one broken lease, and maybe that broken lease was for something that wasn't really your fault, and you would like to challenge it. There are lawyering, I love to say that, the Community Lawyering Center, which is a partnership between Legal Aid and UNT School of Law. And they have 2 locations, one at the Fraser Community Center, one at downtown at City Walk. And their contact information is on here. The phone numbers are here. And so you can call them, tell them what your problem is, and make an appointment. And they work with broken leases. They also work with tickets that you might have where you have to pay those extra fees, that maybe they could get those reduced, maybe problems with your credit. They could help with those things as well. Another resource is Housing Crisis Center. They have a legal clinic on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month. Of course, with COVID-19, it might be best to call Housing Crisis Center to find out if they are doing those. They may be doing them by phone rather than in person. And then Legal Aid of Northwest Texas has a department that also will work with broken leases or poor credit problems, tax problems, and so you can give them a call as well. So you might need financial assistance. It might be financial assistance for that fee and the deposit, maybe even a little bit of the first month's rent. So watch our Genesis Financial Empowerment video on YouTube for a lot of great resources and ideas. You can talk to your advocate about financial resources. And most communities have a community center, and they are a great resource for assistance, really for just about anything. Financial assistance might mean not necessarily cash assistance, but assistance with getting furniture, especially beds. And so those are things you might want to talk to your advocate about or check with your community center. And you need to safety plan. So when you're moving into a new place, whether it's an apartment or a home, and you're coming out of domestic violence, you really do need to think about safety. So if you need to keep your address confidential, consider being in a transitional housing program through a domestic violence agency, because in that case, your address is, you're going to be at an undisclosed location. If you're not going to do the transitional housing program and you don't need to do that, still consider the location of the apartment or house. List contact information for the nearest police station, for a family or friend who would be in an accessible location you could go to. You might consider looking into a security system for your home. They have become more affordable, and there could be some financial programs that could help pay for that. And then create a written safety plan for what to do if there's a threat to your safety. And then practice, practice, practice what's in that plan. If you have children, practice with them as well. Remember, your goal is safety, stability, and long-term housing. And we really want to see you succeed in that. Thank you for watching. The advocate who presented today is myself, Christine Ruddle. My number is 214-389-7760. And my email address is kruddle@genesisshelter.org. So please contact me if you have any questions or you need to just maybe brainstorm some resources. Thank you for joining.